Josh, what is going on, brother man? Thank you. Welcome to Let It Rip, man. Are you ready to let it rip?
Yeah, let her rip.
Let's go. Awesome.
All right, dude, Josh. I couldn't be more appreciative of your time in your tropical paradise. Right out of the gate, man. For people who don't know who you are, tell us a little bit about you, like what you're doing out there in the most beautiful place on earth, how it is you landed there, and what it is you've got going on.
Yeah, I mean it's kind of crazy. I mean, for those that kind of don't know, I ran it hard for years and years and years and years, doing marketing businesses, writing books, speaking all over the world, traveling, just all kinds of craziness. And COVID hits. Obviously, that's a different kind of crazy. And the kids couldn't go to school and do anything really that made sense. And we had vacationed in Nicaragua because we're cigar lovers, and this is the mecca for that world. And we thought we'd vacation down here again with the kids. And the kids were like, well, why don't we just move there? Because we couldn't do anything else. So ultimately, that's what we decided to do. We sold everything, packed up, a suitcase each, the dog and two cats, and came down here, and it was great. It was much needed. It was awesome for me to kind of check out for the first time in my life, and just like not be in everything, because you know how it is. You guys are driven people. You're out in the ocean, you're swimming, and you don't have to see shore because you don't care. You're going to fucking get there. And that's how it had been for me for 20 years. And I had the privilege of reaching every damn goal and dream I ever had. So it was like, what's next? Well, you know what? Rest. That's what was next.
I think that story alone, with where you are, what you went through, and landing in that kind of life, is everyone's dream. Now, my question is, now that you've had your rest, do you feel a little bit of that old fire come back a little bit? Do you feel like it's time to kind of come out of that psychological beach-based retirement to do something? And where's that kind of lead you? Like, does it feel like a rejuvenation, or do you feel like picking up where you left off? Where are you at?
It's interesting because my thought was to kind of semi-retire down here and all that. And honestly, I work twice as hard and I do twice as much shit than I ever did. And I think it's partially just being here. Like, a lot of people do think about it as vacation, right? I could go to the beach and have a margarita every day if I wanted to, but that's great for like 2 weeks. If you don't have a plan after that, you're just like this aimless, lost dude. And you guys know, as dudes, we need to have that purpose and aligned, or we're kind of a mess. So really today I have a business partner and a marketing company, and we're kicking ass there and just slaying it. And it's been awesome. And then, I was off social media for a couple of years because of health issues with my family and other things, which again allowed me to even reset more because I was so outward, right? I was always trying to help people and build other people up. And it really allowed me to do that as best I could within our family, and also get back to the one-to-one with human beings here in the small town in Nicaragua we live in. So that was awesome. Yeah. But the second I got back on social media, things kind of came back, right? People started reaching out, wanting to do podcasts and doing other things. And organically, they were kind of throwing matches on the kindling that's always been in there. You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, the world's different than it was, 6-7 years ago. What's that mean for me? Who needs my purpose? Because it's always there. So that's kind of where I'm at today, which is exciting because what does that mean? Well, I'm digging that out right now, and I'm stoked for what's coming.
Hold on, Mike. Give 1 sec. I was gonna ask you really quick, and I hope this doesn't derail your question, Mikey. But I know everybody has that thought of getting away or moving to that destination or living that second life, as I like to call it. But is there some sense of FOMO that you've got when you first moved out there? Does that come? Does that go? Or is it just, this is my purpose, this is what my calling was?
if you're talking like FOMO after I moved here, like the FOMO of like not being in the States and not living kind of that rat race.
To where you have like rapid reach to stuff so close to you to where it's like, I need to go to this store. You know,
Right.
you get out there and it's like, well, I don't have this store. I don't have, you know, access to
Anything.
this place, anything. Correct.
Yeah.
So that type of FOMO.
Yeah, no, I don't. I love it. I'm a less is more guy. If you look at what I actually own personally, not family, but me personally, it's a couple of watch investments, some clothes, and some books, and that's it. Like and my cigars. That's all I personally really own. So it was never about that. You know, of course, you miss your family, you know, your extended family, etc. But ultimately, it's taught me more lessons than it's done anything else, which is awesome because you really realize what people are capable of and what happiness really looks like. We think we know, and especially guys like us that dive deep within ourselves, we think we know, but then when we see people sweeping their dirt floors and smiling with their family in the afternoon, sitting in chairs that are, you know, were probably built in the 40s by someone's old hands, that's intense. And the kids are playing with rocks, you know, and just enjoying life. That's a whole different kind of happiness.
That almost answers my question, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's something that I struggle with and Jake has to hear a lot about. One thing that I have a hard time disattaching from is the purpose of being of service to others, so much so that I forget to actively live my own life and distance myself so I can be the best provider of being of service. And from what I hear, that's kind of like where your hard line got to when you started moving forward into this new Josh and Sin life. What did you feel like a weird disattachment or like feel almost like you were like missing a part of yourself when you did that? Or did you finally find like you were filling yourself by being able to just allow it to be what it was and kind of close the book or at least end that chapter?
It felt good to kind of end that chapter because then I could like wash it off me. Not the service necessarily, because I'm like you. Like I want to give always. It doesn't matter if it's a dog that needs some food or somebody on the street. Like, you know, so what if the dude's got a BMW around the corner, but he needs $1 today? If I give that $1, that feels good for me. It's not on me that he's scamming me out of $1. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I carry that in much the same way. I have to be of service. But to be of service to people at the level that I was so often and for so long, whether it's in-person events or speaking to 1,000 people at a time or whatever that really looked like, it was nice to know I didn't, quote, have to do that, right?
Yeah.
Because at some point, and maybe this is kind of what you're talking about, at some point, you start to lose the why I'm doing this. Like you guys know, I hold up the cards up each day, you know, on social media, and it's like those were always kind of for me. Like I wrote what I needed to see, so it was honest and authentic and real. And the fact that it helped other people was great. It kept me accountable and maybe kept other people accountable too. But then it's like, you know, it's like, well, I don't know if I have anything to say today, but you kind of figure it out and you write something anyway, and then it's like, after a time of that, it starts draining you because it's not real in the way it was before. Not to say it wasn't helpful, but it feels different internally. You know, I don't want to say sell out, but kind of that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So stepping away was needed because then not only did I step away physically here, then after being here a while, I stepped away from social media, period. And that gave me a chance to live new life, to have new words, to have different, more exciting, in my opinion, things to say for honestly a new audience. Because a lot of the kids that I spoke to in high school, if you take a few years off and get away from that and you do it for a decade, those kids now are grown. They got kids. They're married. You know, they're doing the grind. And it's like, oh, shit, what's that mean for this old guy now? You know, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah. Well, I can align with that so much because even Jake and I, like we've gone through these pivots with the Force of Focus where it came from such a level of significance of a real fresh hurdle that we had personally experienced either as a business and as a team or as individuals that we could speak heavily on, knowing like what it felt like, what we went through, how we made the adjustments and where we got. But then eventually you start to unintentionally pivot to how is it that we can keep up with the market for what the market needs, not speaking from conviction of what it is like we've actually experienced. Jake and I can tell you everything we know about marketing, marketing, content, branding, and all that. But at what point do you realize like this is just depleting my true calling of the being of service to the individual before any of that other shit can possibly matter?
Right. Yep. Yeah. That makes it tough because again, the way to be seen, right, and to be of service is to do that stuff. If you don't have the content, if you don't have the things, then you're not doing it, which is ultimately what made it so great for me stepping away from that for a while was because, I'd go in town and go into the vegetable market to get veggies. And, you talk to somebody on the street and then you talk to the woman that's running Christian that runs the vegetable market and have a quick conversation and figure out what's up in their life and have the real one-to-one again, because we do it with this so often. We forget that what we're doing right now needs to happen in real life, not on a scheduled podcast, not through the phone, but on the street. Spend 20 minutes in the damn bread aisle like our grandparents used to do at the freaking grocery store. Don't have your shit delivered today. That kind of stuff fucking matters.
That's a big thing that Jake brought to the forefront with what we do is if it doesn't bring people closer together in human interaction, then all we're doing is distancing people from truly being able to do anything in reality. And that's really kind of been a new mission, even in the limit of how much output we have for content. How much can we do in real life? It's the content creation versus documentation aspect of things. And right when you had hopped on, Jake was just telling me about a weekend that he had with this really cool body hacking conference that he had done, or expo. And it was that, we didn't talk the whole damn weekend and he was filling me on and all that. And it's so cool to hear somebody out enjoying the interaction, the humanization, all of it, and I don't nearly enough.
And Mikey knows, man. I mean, Josh, like for so many years, 5 years to be exact, I was working behind the scenes with two really big mentors. And I was just the guy that was doing the graphics. And I would go to the bank or I'd go to the grocery store and I would just keep to myself because I was tired or I just didn't have anything to say. And something just pivoted, and something that we express to a lot of the Force of Focus people. And again, we're not going to call ourselves mentors or gurus or anything like that, but we do a really good job at leading these folks because we teach them, especially tattoo artists, they get so lost in just their client that day. They forget when they go to the grocery store, say hi to Susie behind the register. Just say, Susie, what's going on? How's your day today? And I'm like, you guys are looking for clients. Well, it starts with communication. If you can't communicate to just Susie behind the desk. So for me, it feels great to get out to these biohacking events and just learn and feel and shake hands and hug and really represent, because when you come back here and you've got that brand new, so like I'm fired up this week because I got to meet over 110 people this weekend, I spoke to so many. So what you're saying, it nails it, man. I think so many people are lost in the social media of what they have to do. They forget about what they need to do. And that's just be a good person and go shake a hand, go smile. Ask Bob at the Ace Hardware store, how you doing today? And you watch that person lights up. That I don't care who you are. You ask somebody, even going through Del Taco, hey, Georgia, how you doing today? She looks at you like, did you just ask me that? She's like, she's counting down the hours. She's like, I just started, man. Hope it gets better. And you're like, hey, everything's going to be perfect. And you just fire them up and then you leave and they're just like, damn, I bet their 7 hours just went by a lot better.
Absolutely. That's spot on. That's ultimately how I've lived my whole life, is by that. And I'm lucky and I'm thankful because my grandmother was this tiny little woman, not even 5 foot tall. And I would take her to like the grocery store or Walmart or whatever. And she was known by all the cashiers and other people that worked there so well, because when we would check out, they would all stop what they were doing and wait for her to give them hugs. All of them, all like 8 checkouts. And that happened virtually everywhere I took her. And that really taught me what we're talking about now is what kind of value are we giving people? Are we just interacting? Are we just, kind of being passive, or are we providing value to people, even nameless people that we don't know, when we cross paths with them? Because we should be providing some sort of value in those moments.
and I love that you said that, dude, because even when we go out to dinner with the kids, you know, I've got an 11 and 12-year-old, and they're just tied to their phone. And as much as I try and stop and beat it, they see dad on the phone. You know, it's nonstop.
Right.
But when we go out, they used to say, "Oh, I want the mac and cheese or the butter noodles." I go, "Well, don't tell me, tell Sue." And now they have to. They don't. I no longer take the order. I go look at our waitress, smile, and tell them what you want, and tell them thank you. You know, now they just do it without even thinking. It's just like, "Hi, it's Debbie. Can I get the mac and cheese? Hold the whatever it is, hold the Parmesan." And then they're like, "Thank you." And I'm like, "Fuck, I did it.
Yeah.
You know, I had that feel good dad moment, you know? But those are the little things, dude, because you just let them sit on the phone like, "Dad, tell her I want the garlic bread." Like, no, you tell her, please, that you would love the garlic bread, you know?
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Such a
100%. 100%. That's how it's done. Well done.
So out of curiosity, then I'm going to make a hard pivot because there's a part of Josh that I know that also comes with a very distinct level of intensity that comes with the masculine approach. And I know that there was apparel and bodybuilding and all these things where you let a lot of that aggression and that intensity out. One, can you define that and its level of value in the person you get to be when you're humble, and how you flip that switch from one to the other? Because I know you still have it.
Yeah, this is a great conversation and one I haven't had. So thank you for pulling this out. Because I see it in you guys too. And what you guys are doing is awesome. I think I reached out to you a while ago and mentioned that like I was stoked to see that kind of building up.
Yeah.
And that's super cool. And knowing that you guys get the two sides, because even my posts tend to have a little bit of both of those. And what it comes from, and I guess I'll cover where it comes from and kind of how I turn that on and off. But honestly, and you guys know, like I'm a huge OG, like metalhead, hardcore fan. Like, you know, and you have guys, you know, like John Joseph from the Cro-Mags and Blood Clot and Henry Rollins. And if, you know, you can't be sort of into hardcore and not know either of those names and know what kind of intensity they brought, especially to like the OG interviews and stuff. It's like, you know, Henry Rollins being like, "Look, you have 2 minutes and 2 questions left. What are you going to ask? You better make them good." And that kind of stuff is just like, whoa, dude can control, like he's supposed to be being interviewed and he just flipped that. And now he's calling the shots. Yep. That kind of stuff went a long way with me when I was young, because I realized I didn't have to be so passive about things. And I tend to be passive until I'm pushed, right? That's kind of the old, you don't have to react to things that don't, you know, aren't worth your time. And I think that's valid. So I don't. But I do think that intensity is valid at times, and it is still in there. I'm still smashing it at the gym. I'm still pushing things pretty hard. And ultimately, at 45 years old, I would say I'm probably in the best shape I've ever been in, and I love it. And that's after time not focusing there, which I'm glad, because that fire, right, that we were talking about. So that's kind of where it comes from. But the why it's there and how I control it is, you know, I have to have it because I like to be peaceful, right? I think it's important to be peaceful. But there's the adage about, you know, being a soldier in a garden rather than a garden in a war, or a gardener in a war. You guys have heard that, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
You'd much rather be able to have the violence in you and never use it than not have it and need it. And I think that's a big deal. I apply that to work, to discipline, to habits, to my mindset. I would, you know, my wife makes fun of me a lot. Like you would rather sleep on the ground on a pile of hay than sleep in the bed if somebody gave you that choice. And the answer is yes, I would. Why? Because I can be uncomfortable, and sometimes I need that reminder. So I'm going to get uncomfortable. Someone else can have the privilege. And tomorrow when I get back in the bed, I will be reminded how great and comfortable that bed is. Those kinds of things are where that intensity is important for me. Now, the turning it off and turning it on, I don't know that I do, or I do a good job with it. I just kind of am. And if the situation dictates, I probably turn it on. And it may be like you may see it some in the conversation. Even just talking about this, I can kind of feel it. And it's because I'm passionate about things.
Yeah.
So if I'm passionate about something, you're going to see that come out. And, sometimes it's maybe not in the right, timing isn't quite right, but also I don't have to give a shit about that. That's somebody else's problem, right? If they're intimidated by that, if they're like, whoa, you're coming on pretty strong. It's like, no, I'm just passionate. I'm not upset at you. I'm not mad, but understand, like, I'm fucking stoked to talk about this or to do this or whatever. And I think people feeling that starts to change the dynamic of whatever situation you're in. I think it's a big deal.
What's important to acknowledge about that, though, is you would prefer to experience discomfort at your own hand than allow discomfort to be delivered to you by outside sources or anything external. And I think societally, we look outside of ourselves and just say, well, everything's uncomfortable and we have no control over it. So we live in that. But having control of your discomfort allows you the privilege of being extremely comfortable in any situation. And coming from my background of drug addiction, alcoholism, being a felon, being a tattoo artist, being an old punk rocker, discomfort was kind of a foundational pillar, which now that I'm I followed my faith, I'm into my fitness, I'm a father, a husband, an artist, a leader. It's like I'm still super uncomfortable, but I'm still in my happy place because of it, because it's always kind of been there. But now I'm actively in control. When it was the drugs and alcohol, it was out of control. And
Right.
now I have that control over it. And I never really look at it as I'm at peace in it. But I think just even the way that you had kind of defined it, that makes it pretty apparent. Like you had said, I'd rather be a warrior in a garden than a gardener in a war.
Mm-hmm.
And it becomes your natural state, and you can turn it on, turn it off, but it's more fun. I think it's more enjoyable to allow the ebbs and the flows, and for it to just be accelerated and then just kind of come down and find that happy little coast of it.
Right.
And I want to know, Josh, like, at what point do you think that confidence, if that's what we want to call it, really came about? Because it's also another topic we talk to a lot of our clients and friends about, is allowing the energy or the time being spent on something. And it took me, God, I mean, such a long time. I was such a people pleaser. It was always about what the person needed. And I thought that was how you serve. But it wasn't until maybe a year ago where I can finally come at peace and be like, this is my time. This is the conversation I want to be in. This is where I dictate. And now we've got some of our clients asking me, like, how did you do that? Like, we have Patrick, let's just throw Patrick out there. He got stuck in a conversation that he didn't want to be in for way too long. And he's like, how do you stop that? I'm like, you nip it in the butt right at the beginning. And it's something where he's like, how did you learn that? I go, well, it just came with confidence, I guess, or it came with just allowing that external, dictation of what you said, you know what I mean? And Mikey can pertain to this because he's good at it. But up until 6 months ago, Mikey was hitting me up at like his 9 a.m., which is like my 7 a.m. And I'm trying to fucking meditate or do my red light. And I'm sitting there fucking answering him while I'm trying to do it. And finally I'm like, fuck, I don't have any time to do it now. Finally, I tell Mikey, like, don't fucking call me until 9 a.m. or else I'm not going to answer. And he was like, looked at me like he was proud of me. He was like, I've been waiting for that because I knew within the time, nobody fucks with my 2 hours. That's all I need in my morning is 2 hours. So, but it took a long time because I was always wanting to, I'm going to have FOMO. I'm going to miss that conversation, or I'm going to let this person down because I didn't text them within an hour, So like, where did that, back to my original question, where did that confidence or where did that structure develop with you?
Man, all that was great. I feel like there's so much good stuff you said there, dude. Honestly, for me, like to really just nail that on the head, like the confidence and my general approach I grew up in a small town in Iowa, like 1,200 people, right? And I was sucked into National Geographic and like Metal Edge and Ripped magazine and like music, badass shit. I was seeing, the dudes from like LA Guns and Motley Crue were getting heavily tattooed. Then you had the Maori people in New Zealand that were getting their face tattooed. And I'm just like, in the scarification, in Australia. And I'm thinking, holy shit, there's this whole world out there that I'm in, sitting and reading. And I never looked around where I was at. And I just kind of did the things I thought made sense for me. And, I was always like the weird kid, that weird Coburn kid walking to the beat of his own drum, yada, yada. But I didn't give a shit because I knew that even if my people weren't there, they were somewhere. Clearly, there's pictures of them. I knew I could listen to their music. I could read about them. Like, they existed. They just weren't in my locale. So for some reason, well, not for some reason, honestly, it was because of work. It was because early on, it was like 6 a.m. on a snowy Sunday morning. Why it had to be 6 a.m., I didn't get it. But Dad would wake my ass up and go chop wood because we needed wood for the wood burner to keep our house warm, right? Yeah. It's like, that sucked, and I hated it. I'm like, I could do this at 10 a.m. Well, no, it was 6, and that's when you're going to do it. And now I get it. And that's where the kind of discipline and confidence comes from, because I had to walk outside in the cold. I had to chop this amount of wood. I had to throw it in the house. I had to stack it up, and I had to make sure the family was warm. That was part of my job. And that told me I could do things. I could swing an axe at least. And slowly over time, you start to find your place with that, with failure, with learning and making those gains over again. So thanks to my dad's relentless pursuit of work and putting me to work, along with kind of my understanding the world was bigger than what was immediately in front of me, really just allowed me to go for it. That said, I think something that people, especially in our positions, don't talk about a lot are kind of the casualties of things, right? So what happens? What's for all this great stuff we're talking about? What's the sacrifice piece of it? What dies because of it? And it in this case, right? What some of it is your anxiety goes away. You kill depression. You're able to stand tall, and that's all great. The other side of it is, years later, I start getting heavily tattooed, and Mikey knows, like, if you're in a town of 1,200 people and you got sleeves and it's fucking 1998, you're it. That's it. Yeah. And, I was pushing into corners, and, I was basically told I was a piece of shit. I'd never amount to anything. So then I had to battle that, and I started to believe it. So what's the consequence of my being so confident so young? Yeah. I have to now go through a whole other phase of being put down, put in my place, so to speak, and really humbling myself that, maybe I am kind of a piece of shit, and then rebuilding and, restacking those bricks so I can climb the stairs all over again. And, those are the consequences of that. But ultimately, that's what gives us the stage to stand on, right? And then, of course, when we go stand on it and we go do it, like in my case, traveling and speaking and doing all this crazy shit, it was awesome. But what do you miss? Jake, you're probably very aware you miss birthdays, you miss funerals, you miss weddings, you miss all these other things because you're out there on the road somewhere doing some of the things. So for all the greatness and all the fucking wins, you still have to carry some sacrifice with all that and consequence, which you
couldn't speak to me more, man. I was a touring musician for 7-8 years. I was doing at one point 240 shows a year. So we missed. And I think that's kind of where I'm getting back to, is especially with this platform, is I was the lead vocalist of a heavy metal band. You know what I mean? All I had to do that day was either perform 20 minutes or my 60-minute set. It didn't matter. It was either 7 at night or 12 o'clock in the morning. And other than that, I had free range to do whatever the fuck I wanted. Nobody told me what to do other than if I had an interview or I had to load in. But the point of that was I'm getting back to those roots, which is a great feeling, but a little bit more responsibility, a hell of a lot less drugs and alcohol, which is amazing. So I get to remember when we do these podcasts. But that's really where the rain is coming back and seeing that confidence. And just like you said, it wasn't me chopping wood, but I had my duties and my chores for my stepdad and whatnot. But I think everybody needs to find that inner stage or that inner kid in them. And that's really what we bring out is, why can't you do it? Oh, you're 45, you have 2 kids, but why can't you do the one thing that you love? And I think that's really what we try and push on this platform, is it doesn't fucking matter. We call ourselves the comeback kids every single day because we get the opportunity to do what we really want. It's just finding that inner child or that inner chopping wood or that inner rock star within that person. So I'm glad. I fucking love that you said that, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm with you. And I think that's hugely important. If you're going to talk about that specifically, look at dudes that are our age that took a nice break in there and still doing it. Your Philip Labonte's, your Brandon Chipetti, like they took a break and now they're back at it. They're doing the thing.
I'm glad he said Brandon, man, because I have the opportunity to speak with that guy almost every day, man, and he's been such an influence with me, dude. Is watching what he's been through with the community of fitness and heavy metal, so that's rad. But you're
Yeah.
right.
Tell him I said what's up.
I will for sure, dude. I'll actually have a call with him later. Um,
Nice.
but but yeah, you're watching so many of these bands come back around, and it's like it's so crazy to see because I probably would have been dead if we continued touring after 2000 and Dead. I mean, personally, I literally would have been. But to watch these bands that we played Sounds of the Underground with, or the Unearths, or the Hatebreeds, to watch Jamie Jocelyn, like he hasn't even skipped a beat. You know what I mean?
Right.
The dude just hasn't stopped. I'm like, how? Fuck, man, how do you do it? But he had it down. He started at 16 and he was playing some of the biggest stages at 17. A lot of people didn't know he was that young, opening up for Earth Crisis and the Bloodlets and the Integrities, you know? So it's really cool.
I
Really
think
awesome.
the question, like the question that I have pertaining to that, is do you think the reason they have it down is because they have something that's off stage that means as much to them as being on stage? Because I think one thing that we notice, having talked to a lot of musicians and a lot of artists, is when their primary focus is, as you would say, just being on stage the rest of the day is theirs to do with what they want. They generally have nothing to do that they want, so they do absolutely nothing or nothing productive. And I think one reason people can maintain it or at least get drawn back to it with a completely different lens is because it's not about being on stage. And this is something I think I'd learned in a different verbiage from Josh years and years ago, was it's not about what you do, it's about who you are to be able to do it better or more valuably. And that's something that always kind of brought me back to my foundation, was just knowing like the force of focus, man. Like I became just the force of focus for a little period of time. I was no longer Michael Getz. I was no longer Mikey Mike. I was no longer all of the different versions of me in my head that performed at high levels everywhere else. I was just the Instagram handle. And then I realized that's that stage concept. That's just the performance, the persona, not the actual personality we continuously refine. So do you think, from even Josh, your perspective of distancing yourself from social media, do you think it gave you more light and a better understanding? Did social media change drastically just based on the higher expectations of algorithm or what performance looks like from an outbound? Or how has your life changed to be able to know it doesn't matter as much how people perceive you, but you feel more called to just be the Josh necessary for the current state?
Yeah.
A lot of words. Oh boy, I
No,
just ripped. Sorry about that.
Good things. So two things there. The first thing you brought up about like musicians, or in my case, just a speaker on stage. If there was something else off stage that keeps them going, like your Jamie Josses of the world, right? I think yes. I think because as dudes, we are absolutely driven passionately to accomplish things, right? And if you have, if you're a dude who's still stapling shit to poles and in your town to do shows, that's what you're doing initially. Well, then you have a whole team eventually that gets you there. So now you're, like you said, what else are you doing with your day? You have dudes to load you in, load you out. Like, what are you doing? Well, hopefully you have some other passion, whether that's fitness or some. I mean, let's look at all the people out there. I'll talk about Nita Strauss. If you guys don't know who she is, she's a kind of hired gun for Alice Cooper. She does solo stuff, and she's one of many amazing people out there. But she also does fitness stuff and food stuff and all kinds of things. So, like, I think it's important to have kind of, it could be family, just the other thing that you're accomplishing. Whether everybody's got their kind of Mount Everest they're climbing, but you should have smaller peaks on the way, and they'll probably help you get up the rest of that mountain, because without it, if you don't have your support system, you're still just one dude climbing shit. Yeah. So that's real tough. Yeah. But the second half of your question, which I might have to have you repeat because I feel like I might have talked myself out of what I was going to say with that. But
can't do it. Forgot it.
Oh, okay. Well, shit. I'll talk about whatever the hell.
You already forgot it, Josh.
Sorry, that's what happens when you get me blabbing, especially.
I think it was in the same tune, I think, as what you were already saying.
Yeah. Well, and you did ask a little bit about kind of social media and like if the approach, the algorithm and the approach became different because now it's about reach and it's not about connection or authenticity. Those things do matter because you start to think, well, if I say, hey guys, kick ass today, that applies to a bigger audience. That means more reach. It's like If we're going to use a music analogy again, that's like writing a radio hit when really you want this down and dirty, song with major breakdowns that would never get played on the radio. Those are two different things. And what's your goal? Sometimes you got to put a ballad on the record to get the radio so you can get the cool shit heard. Is that how you want to approach it? If that's how you want to approach it, that's okay. That doesn't mean it's wrong. Does that make you a sellout? Maybe a little bit, but maybe not. You got food to get on the table. So there's a lot of ways to look at things. For me, I think I just show up as authentically as I can and be as honest and real. And if it connects, great. If it doesn't, well, then fuck it. That's what it is.
Yeah, it's not your tribe.
Well, it kind of transitions the question. So you took quite a few years off social media from where you were pre and just post pandemic to present day, having that large gap of freedom away from the simulation that I think everybody's found themselves living in. I don't really care as much about the reach and how things perform, but just with the new light you have on life, do you notice just a drastic difference in what the digital world looks like? And are you kind of bringing a new light back into that? Because most people don't live in reality. And I think that's one thing that I've always been drawn to you with, is you've always been a very present and intentional person, whether it's online or sitting in the cigar lounge. You've always been there.
Right. Well, I certainly try to be. My wife might tell you differently. but it's like, I mean, it's crazy because the way I see it, especially with the break and like my marketing business is social media also, outside of what I do. Like that's a totally separate thing. We have a whole marketing business that does, well, marketing online. And it's like, okay, so I can talk data and all the things all day long on that. What I do is definitely not based around that. What I can tell you though, is what I've seen in the difference between the way it was and the way it is in the last, maybe we'll say 6 years, what I see is less people are engaging at a level online that they once did. And what I mean by that is it used to be, you get a like, you get a comment, maybe you get a DM, and then people start to kind of, you make friends, you kind of grow that way. What I see now is people share actually less. People interact a little bit less. And I don't know what the reason, maybe it's from, the pandemic bullshit. People now want to be outside and do things. Maybe it gave some people perspective and they're not staring at their phones as much. Maybe it's political, right? Because everybody wants to argue and talk shit without getting punched in the face. So they do it online. And I think a lot of people are just tired of that bullshit. And I think that's where guys like us come in, right? People maybe aren't engaging as heavy, but you can see who's looking at your shit. The numbers for views are a zillion times higher than who's tapping on your likes and your hearts and your whatevers. And I think that's simply because people want to be part of something. They want to engage with something. They want to digest something, but they don't interact as much as they once did. And I think that's where, again, we come in, because I think I'm telling people constantly, get off their phones, go do cool shit, live your fucking dreams, because they're not through your phone. Yes, there are ways to achieve great things using social media, but at the end of the day, that's not real life, like we were talking earlier. And I think people are out there living real life more. And I think they're seeking more authenticity through social media more than they ever have.
Well, and I think at a certain point, man, like most people can't even write a message to somebody without them thinking they're selling them something. Because if you did that on the real street, it's like if I walked up to you, Josh, I'm not gonna be like, hey, this is my 15% discount code for my affiliate. If you want to use it, you'll get a discount. It's like, no, I'm like, Josh, what's up, bro? Did you go catch that show last week? That's a conversation. So nowadays, and we have to tell them, no, I'm guilty about this, is the whole point of the social media was to be social. But everybody just wants me. I didn't get these likes. I didn't get these views. I didn't get the DMs. I didn't get this. Well, what did you do? Did you go write Susie and ask how her fucking day was? Well, did you go ask Mike how his small business is doing? Did you ask John how the book he read last week was doing? No, because everybody just wants this like gratification of me, and there's no fucking output of like, well, what did you do? You keep getting pissed because you got 300 likes on this post, but how many likes did you go and do yourself that day? Did you skip right through? You're like, oh, that's a fucking dope picture. Swipe. Oh, dude, that's a
Right.
really cool edit. Swipe. No, did you take the time to hit the fucking heart and write, hey, this is a dope ass video without selling something? That's the fucking problem with social media right now.
I
You know?
think to a large degree with that, if you look at bleak social circles, when you just hang out with a bunch of people because they're really good ways to pass your weekends, none of you have much in common. You just so happen to be present there in each other's lives, but there's no interaction. There's really no like, I want to know about your dreams. I want to know what you're doing. And I want to be able to help you get to the place. You know, right after the pandemic, it was the best way for people to socialize. It was social in capital letters media. And then over the course of time, those expectations were raised so hard that people learned how to manipulate the system and start implementing a lot more of a heavy front loaded marketing. So marketing became an all time high, which broke people's trust. So now trust is at an all time low. And now people are just there as the addictive personality of just, well, now I don't have a social circle I can pass my time with, or I'm waiting for my turn to socialize. So I'll just spend my time here in my virtual waiting room to go out and do something. And I think that's been the big pivot. And the nice thing to hear you say, Josh, which is something that I know Jake is actively living and we consistently talk about, is social media. It does have value. It does have purpose. It connects people around the world, no different than this. But you have to get out and live your life. You will never know your full potential if you are simply like being stuck in the midst of information overload or the hyperfixation on comparison on other people's fabricated levels of success, or fill in the blank. You know, there's a huge push to going as, I mean, I know Jake just sent it to me, like Gary Vee says, the thing that's going to really perform best is analog, actually living. And it takes someone like Gary Vee to say it for people to say, you know what? I think I'm going to go do that. And then like you go outside and your eyes kind of moisten at what reality looks like. You're not dry and having like the blue rot occur. But it's not just where businesses are built. It's where lives are molded. It's where relationships grow. It's how you can interact with those you love. It's where you can really learn that some of the people you talk to most frequently have nothing in common with you whatsoever, you know?
Well, and what's cool is in no way, Josh, am I trying to plug, Mikey knows I don't plug my peptide company, but I've ran an experiment. We've been a company now. We just hit our 1 year socially. And I wanted to run an experiment. If I could turn this business into a financial freedom with faceless marketing, no online sales, only do it by guerrilla marketing, shaking hands, referrals. We just hit a 6-figure business. Not once have I went on my social media and spoke about my peptide company. If you go to my Instagram page, it's only faceless graphics. And we removed our online sales. We probably were up and running maybe only 2 months, but I took them down because the whole point of my company was I wanted to be able to coach them and teach them and be able to interact. Hey, when I sell Susie a Red Tide, I want to be able to help her, not dose her, because obviously we can't give medical advice. It's for research purposes only. But I've been a coach for 16 years. I don't know anything else other than to serve. And I wanted to run this experiment until I could actually sit back and go, man, the three of us just turned this into a 6-figure business with 0 paid ads, 0 talking about it, and no online sales, which is pretty incredible to do in 2026.
It's awesome.
It's fucking awesome to sit back and go, man, we actually did it. So now I can tell people, like, you don't need to do this. You don't need to do that. What you need to do is get the fuck out of your fucking office or out of your home. When you make a sell, you shake their hand. You give them the experience. You fucking tell them, hey, I've got this referral. You want to get free peptides? Tell your friend about this. You know what I mean? I'd love to give you that. Because ultimately, that's why I started this was, one, I selfishly wanted better peptides at a better rate. And 2, I wanted to be able to hook up my friends and family. And now that's what I get to do. You know what I mean? So I just wanted to say that because I've literally been experimenting. Just talking to one of my mentors today, he was like, bro, like, you got to talk about that experience. And I'm like, yeah, it's what I'm going to do. So I think it went a long way. But people need to realize, back to the original point, is we're in that society where you don't need to go on TikTok to sell something. You need to go to the store. You need to go to your community. You need to do events. You need to set up a booth. You need to go to the Chamber of Commerce, whatever it is, go out. When you go out to dinner, let Debbie know, hey, I've got a t-shirt company. I've got a tattoo company. Here's my business card. I'd love to hook you up. Whatever that is, man.
Yep.
That's how
100%. I mean, some of us were old ass dudes who did that shit before social media, right? And we did it. We made it work. We weren't figuring out how to make flyers on
Well,
our phones.
and
We were
that
doing it
possibly
on
could be
Miro.
it. Yeah, that could be it. I didn't have social media to go get people to my show. I had to go around with tickets in my backpack filled with
Yeah,
CDs to stand outside my local hardcore show to pass my album out and go, hey, we'll be here next weekend. Maybe that's just
exactly.
the gen that we're, maybe that's just us. But
Well, I
people
think
need to
it's
get that
important
back.
though.
Yeah.
I think it's important to think back to the DIY kind of ethos in
Mhm.
music or anything
Yeah.
else. Like back in the day when I started releasing books, like there was no, I sent my stuff off and it's like, no, we'll do this, but it wasn't my vision, and maybe we'll try this. I'm like, that doesn't work. So I
Yep.
just started a publishing company. Why? Because I wanted to put out my books the way that I wanted them to be put out.
Yep.
What's the difference in that? Well, you could find a publishing company and sell a book to, a million people, or you can be in debt for $1 million and not sell those books because they didn't do their job marketing or, whatever for advances. Or I can just suck it up and I can print 1,000 books and hope for the best and work my ass off and continue that process. And, if you're paying attention, those business minded out there, if you're pulling that shit, if you're DIYing things, you sell 1,000 books or you sell 10,000 books. If you own those 1,000, you make more money than if you sold 10,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds great to say I sold 10,000 of these, but it sounds better to say I'm financially free. And that's what a lot of people are forgetting when it comes to things,
And they get this scarcity mindset is because when it's not working online, they automatically go, I got to put more money into ads. I got to hire another mentor, which we're shooting ourselves in the foot because that's what we do. But it's brutal honesty though, is maybe it's not the internet. Maybe it's not that ad you didn't put enough money into, or the graphic wasn't right, or the hyper edit wasn't the best, or you weren't as authentic as you thought you were. Maybe you tried the other option, which is go outside.
Yeah.
Yeah, be real.
It's real.
But I think similar to what both of you had just said, like comparing reality to social media in a sense, like everybody banks on attention being the greatest form of like currency now. I think that only works when it is A, organic, and B, analog, as we had just said, because I can shake three hands and have three closes, or at least have three really good interactions with another human being, or I can have 300 likes with absolutely nothing gained, nothing exchanged, and there being no intrinsical value that comes from it aside from some digital stupid little heart that made me feel slightly more validated than I did previous to, or the opposite effect. You got none, and now you're just devastated by the lack of engagement.
Your day's fucked.
I would way rather shake 5 hands in public knowing that we just had a real life human exchange that could blossom into something. It doesn't have to be a close for a tattoo or a client acquisition. It can just be like the positive or at least the beneficial exchange of two people. And that's something that I forgot a lot about, even from the time Josh and I were interacting more frequently because we were in the same state, to the amount of communication we have now. I lost a lot of myself from just being a genuine person in reality. The only people that really interacted with me were my clients in my tattoo studio, or when I would go travel and do podcasts, or a lot of the seminars and stuff. And I was missing something. And what I missed was just genuinely getting to know people on an eye contact basis. And it's still hard for me to get out and do it because of I've got this like button tight schedule that I've got to maintain. And I leave no room for gray because I'm disciplined. But at what point is that just become the most robotic shit in the world, And that is a constant reminder of where I struggle. I don't struggle because I don't know what to do. I struggle because I've realized I too, like Josh had said in the very beginning, can just do too damn much.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I think that takes me back to Mikey. Is Josh, I did this reel a while ago, and we get all these clients and they're constantly saying, man, I only got 300 likes. Man, it only got 500 likes. I said, I don't know about you guys, but I've played in a room of 500 people, and it's a fucking lot of people. I've also played in a room with 10,000 people opening up for Anthrax, and not one of them were into the music because it was all just old school thrash fans. So I told them, I'm like, I would much rather play a show of 500 people that I knew were my fans, watching, buying the merch, going to get the CD, having to sign the autographs, having a beer with after the show, than playing in a room of a bunch of people doing cover songs that don't give a fuck about my music. It's not about the fucking audience. It's about the people that are there to see the band, you know?
Right. 100%. And that's definitely what I was getting at too about that. The 1,000 books versus 10,000 books.
Yeah.
I mean, those things definitely matter. And it's really interesting because, talking about social media and the numbers, like if 10 people came up to you and gave you a compliment every single day, you'd be fucking soaring. And it's like, you get 10 comments and it's like, oh, I didn't do too much today. It's like, didn't do what? What the fuck are you looking for?
Yeah.
Like like, oh, I'm blackballed on social. Well, okay, well, maybe let's adjust some things and, let's mindset anyway, and think about how we approach this. Because if we're out there talking to people, like, put it on you. Give 10 other people compliments today when you're out and about and see what happens. And then realize how much work that actually takes and what that really now means when you can just hand that shit out like candy on social media. Like, it's different things, but it's important to put in that real life perspective for sure. You guys nailed it.
Well, and that's just it. It's a instant gratification. It's like, man, nobody liked my post. Well, what did it take you? 5 seconds on CapCut to use a fucking template to do a motivational quote of somebody else's music, somebody else's graphics, and maybe your bullshit 10-second video of a workout? Like, what do you want? You want a fucking 1,000 applause for that? Bullshit. You put 2 seconds into it, you're going to get, and it's, yeah. And and that's why me and Mikey really wanted to go after this platform, because this is what we thrive on, these conversations. And the ultimate goal is to get you in a room to a podcast studio so the three of us can go have lunch, go get a workout in, and then go get the podcast done. That's the ultimate goal, man. The ultimate goal.
Awesome.
Fuck yeah.
I would like to bring it back to reality. It's hard to not talk about social media because a lot of us live a large portion of our lives on it, and not necessarily for the negative or for the sales. Sometimes it's just because we have family members and friends we can't see all the time. Yep. But going back to like even the unplug, like you hear people say escaping the matrix, and that used to sound so cringy to me until I started to disattach from it and I was actively present in my life. And almost the difficulty of being able to distance myself from it to be able to be more present in my son's life. I mean, I have a split household, so I get my son 4 days out of the week, 3 days out of the week. And to be present in that and to be able to take him out and to watch him interact and to be able to see like him do things from a sense of creativity and his imagination, and me just like almost getting choked up in where did I lose that in my timeline? And honestly, I think I lost that. It wasn't in my adolescence. I didn't have childhood trauma I could blame. I lost it in about the time of the pandemic when social media became very prevalent. I lost my imagination and my creativity about that time because I think a lot of it comes from just looking at the world as this playground ethos of opportunity and of bright, beautiful, weird, wonderful, and sometimes chaotic things. And that's why I envy, and I don't use that word often, but I envy your ability to have been able to escape the matrix, even if it's one that we built for ourselves, to just go live.
Yeah, dude, it's a big deal. One of my friends has a T-shirt, and the front of it says "Rat Race Dropout," and that's about as spot on as I could put it, because that's how I feel. Like, I don't have to get up and drive to work. I don't have to sit in the office. I don't have to, cook my 900 meals in a shitty microwave and then try to get to the gym over lunch break or right after. And then, the whole thing that we do in order to get back to your family at 6:30 at night and then sit down and be like, I'm exhausted. I'm going to crash out. See ya. For what? I get to be here present with my family every day, all day, for better or worse, probably from their perspective, having to deal with me that much. But I can step away. I can take breaks. I can go, put my feet in the damn dirt. I can go sit in the sun for an hour.
Damn it, Josh! I'm trying to get Mikey to California, not to Nicaragua. You're not helping us tell him, bud.
Well, look, I'll advocate for Nicaragua all day long, but not that I dislike California, but honestly, like it's a huge blessing to be here, to be able to do that. And like it's not lost on me either, like how big of a pivot that is for most people. For me, for us, it was just like, yeah, you know what, we should do it. Why the fuck shouldn't we? What's the risk, right? It's like you start to figure that out, because once you figure out you're capable of things, you stop worrying about the what if it doesn't work, then I have to this. It's like, no, we'll figure out how to get over those hurdles, because that's what we've done our whole damn lives. But we get in our minds this thought that we could do a lot of things, but we can't do that. That's way too crazy. And it's like, well, based on what? If you keep doing these things that push you, it's not that anymore. So it's nice to be able to not worry about all that shit.
Josh, I got a question for you, man. For anyone listening, I'm not trying to close out on this question, but for anyone listening that can't get to Nicaragua or can't get up and just move, what advice do you want to give them to be able to live the life that they truly want, to live their Nicaragua, or to live their vacation, to live that day? What would be your advice or that first step to do so?
Great question. For me, what it really comes down to is, what are your priorities? Because chances are good, the first step is going to be figuring out why I'm just pissed at the world, or why I'm depressed, or why I'm whatever, and what am I not doing? Because if you were 17 and you were going to step on stage, or you were 17, you're going to be a tattoo artist and you're not, does that still burn? Because if it does, maybe we need to talk about what that means. And then it's not a matter of, you need to put a band together tomorrow, or you need to, pick up a machine. No, maybe you should just start drawing today. Maybe instead of, cracking open a beer and sitting in the garage alone and pouting your ass around, you go ahead and pick up a pencil, or maybe you pick up a goddamn mic and, put the earbuds in and just try to knock it out with a shitty old boombox in your garage like you did when you were 12 years old. Maybe that's where you start. And I think that's hugely important, because a lot of people think that those big things, especially when you get in your 40s, like, oh, I did the stuff, can't do it now, it's different. No, if anything, it's going to take you half the time with half the work, because you know twice the people and you have twice the smarts. So and you probably have a little bit of cash in the bank account too. So now you can invest in it instead of trying to fund it. So there's a lot of pluses. But I think the biggest thing is getting to the root of what the hell it is. What is your Nicaragua or your Costa Rica or your goal for yourself or your family? What really is that? And why did you stop focusing? Because your water heater fucking broke and now you can't rebuild the, old Corvette that you wanted to rebuild? No, you figure out how the fuck to get in the garage and wrench on that damn thing every week anyway. That's what you do. But you have to start by figuring it out.
I love that you said just get in the garage and scream, because like I just turned 44. I can't get the guys to get together to jam. It's not as easy. Everyone's got kids, and I was making so many excuses. Well, thank God for fucking AI, because here comes Sono, and I could rip my vocals with I wrote a full beat down hardcore album in like less than 2 weeks. I mean, my
Wow.
lyrics I've been writing for years, that I've been waiting on my sophomore album for Mantis. But it's like I told Mike, I'm like, I didn't just sit there and wait. Like I didn't go, well, I can't get my guitar player and I can't. Well, no, I'm going to utilize what I know, and that's technology. And I'm going to use AI to finish this fucking album that's been beating at my heart for 2 years and be able to represent it. So I'm glad you fucking said that, man, because there is zero excuses today. There's zero excuses to be overweight. There's zero excuses not to live your life. There's zero excuses not to start the band or learn how to tattoo. It's all right there.
Then I have two questions. Jake, did you finish the Pirate Pop album?
Mikey, I think you know the answer to that one, Michael.
That's a hard yes.
It's a soft EP. 3 songs were out.
I accept, but they better be 14-minute songs. And so I think, Josh, the question I have for you is, for people who have just kind of lost sight of who they are, the goals they have, and being limited by their personal belief, is their own personal Nicaragua the internal peace they get to find by doing the thing, or is it part of the goal they get to achieve once doing enough of the thing, creating discipline around it?
It's the second one for sure. It's
okay.
I equate it 100% to if you have a thing that you want to purchase, the journey to purchasing, that's awesome. Then you get it, you put it on the shelf and you forget, right?
Yeah.
The building of, I mean, you guys know, getting in shape it changes a ton of things, right? It's, you walk into a room, people are like, that dude's got fucking discipline. I can see it all over him. I know. Now I don't want to fuck with him because I know he'll call me out on shit. There's a lot that comes with that. But what did we do to get there? Well, we picked up fucking heavy things, didn't we? Like, how fucking retarded is that? Like, that's completely ridiculous. We picked up heavy things
Heavy
to earn
music,
all
heavy
this other
lifting.
stuff. What's that?
I said heavy music, heavy lifting.
Yeah, right on. So just that alone, when we start looking at the world in that type of simplicity, which I do because I don't really know any other way. It's, if you start thinking, okay, well, what is my heavy lifting here on X project? If whatever that is, I want to get out of this fucking shit job. Well, do you need some kind of additional education? Is that your heavy lifting? Is it, you need an apprenticeship? Is that your heavy lifting? Do you just need to get good enough to get to any of those things? Is that the heavy lifting today? And once you figure out, I just got to do the heavy lifting, the rest starts to fall into place because now you become disciplined because you've had to do it. You start getting your mind right because the rest of you is falling into place. All this stuff really starts to happen. Once you hit that, and you guys know, once you hit that apex or get to the top of that mountain, you realize how many other bigger fucking mountains are out there to climb. And it's time to go down in the valley again and start fucking climbing up. And that's what makes it so great is that process.
My question to add to that, I know you and I know your wife fairly well. You guys, from a me perspective, have always been go hards. You always have your hand in something that is just infectious to keep up with. Because for me, you seem so at peace with all of it, despite where the intensity level has to be. You're just a very calm as a cucumber kind of cat. And I absolutely love that. But you have the whiskey and the cigars and the marketing and all of it. First, what all do you guys still do? And how do you maintain the balance of all things while still being able to do literally everything we just spent an hour doing? Because it's not that you just get to live in Nicaragua and do nothing. You're both still actively doing so much.
Right. Yeah. I mean, goddamn. So I retired from speaking, but now it's weird because I said I wasn't sure if I'd get back into that, but now it's strange because things start coming up, right? I didn't plan on doing a bunch of podcasts all over again in my life, yet here we are. Same with books. I was pretty sure I probably wouldn't release another book, but now it's like, well, the world's different and people come calling. So, and that still burns. So is that where I end up? So all these things are still percolating. And then you ask, what's really also happening? What's the real day to day? I got the marketing business that we're hammering on. On top of that is Jim, plus my wife owns a tobacco company and cigar company. And we're building a factory here in Nicaragua and rejiggering that whole thing for export to the States. And that takes a bunch. And then she does a lot with the local animal shelter rescue team, SOS here in Nicaragua, because if you've ever traveled in Latin America, there's a big issue with street dogs that need help. Plus she goes out and does stuff with the whale biologists here. All kinds of stuff. She rides horses now and is getting into learning how to do all this equine stuff on top of all of that. Plus she's got this endorsement with American Hat Company, because of that. So there's always things, and it's like the fitness stuff. When I got into fitness, people started reaching out. I was like, hey, you want to do something? And I'm like, Jesus Christ. Yeah. I just want to pick up stuff. But I guess I'll do stuff, but it's funny how all that starts to happen. And to your point, you seem cool as a cucumber. It's because it's just happening. It's because it's supposed to happen. It's because as hard as this is for me to say, I deserve for good things to happen. I work for it. I push for it. I show up. I don't know who's going to call tomorrow. I didn't know you were going to ask me to do this, but here I am because this is where I'm supposed to be. So when you start accepting that things are what they are and that there's value in certain things, you just kind of start building on it. So, we do it and we're able to do it because it's just what we're supposed to do. Is it stressful? Fuck yeah, at times it's stressful. But once you step back from it, it's like, yeah, but that deadline, it's important to keep the team moving forward. But does next Wednesday really fucking matter? Well, no, it could be Thursday morning or Thursday afternoon. But it does matter to keep everybody on course. So you have to have it. But really, let's talk about it. Let's talk about why we're not there. Let's not stress about it. Let's talk about it. So there's a lot that goes with it. But man, I think anybody out there that's shit, did I lose you guys?
No.
No, it's saying
It's still go. It might not be recording. We're still going.
Yeah, we're still we're good. This is that
good.
blooper. We waited for an hour.
Josh, I'm glad you just said that, dude. And as you were saying all that, that whole like choose your hard, like losing weight is hard and being overweight is hard. Choose your hard. Right. Fuck, man, like it goes the same with stress. Choose your stress. Like, would you rather be stressing out on your own terms with your own brand, with your own life, in your own city, in your own clothing, or somebody else's cubicle? You know what I mean? Like, choose your own fucking stress.
100% for that. 100% for that. And that's what it's always been for me. Like, I've always had 1,000 irons in the fire. And it's like, well, why do you do that? It's like, because I love all of them. I haven't worked in like 25 years. Like, I love the shit that I do. And I get to do it every fucking day. And it's wonderful. And people that hate their shit, it's like, look, if you're spending 8 hours hating this, channel that into like at least 3 in the evening of something you're loving to get out of that 8-hour shitstorm that you're dealing with.
The big reason why everything I've ever done that failed was because I was only doing it to hope to produce a specific result that was not the outcome that thing would produce. So it's the same reason a lot of people jump right into steroids, because they just want to rush themselves to the finish line. The Force of Focus made 1 million pivots, not necessarily because it was what I was called to do, but because I thought it was going to be able to produce the most significant outcome for not just the consumers, but for the brand name. But it minimized or depleted what it was I was truly called to do within that. The reason Born Ready, the clothing company, failed was because it was for the outcome and the reward, not because I was in love with the actions we were taking to be able to get to a specific place. Like you said, everything inevitably happens along the path as long as you love the actions you're taking. Not because you're taking these actions as, you're not valuing the actions you're taking. And I think you're absolutely right. I've never said it out loud that things just happen naturally, because that people would generally compare that to luck. But one of my favorite quotes in life was, I'm a firm believer in luck, and I come to find the harder I work, the more I have of it. Is right along lines with what it is you had just said. And I think people need to try to distance themselves from minimize your focus on the expectation and just put all of your focus into the standards it requires to just do the thing when you're doing the thing.
Yep. 100%. Because like I'm just, as one of my favorite OG speakers used to say, I'm just a nobody from nowhere, right? Some small town kid from central Iowa. But at the same time, all of my heroes, their phone numbers are in here. Why? Mm-hmm. It's because weirdly, I was able to position myself into places that they were, and I had value of some kind that benefited them. So even if the whole thing didn't work out, we're still homies. I get to still text them if I want to. And it's just like mind blowing. The dudes whose posters were on my wall, I can text now. What? Okay. How does that work? How is that possible? Well, it's because in the back of our heads, I think we're just driven in a certain way. But on the other side, we put in the work and we showed up and we were in love with whatever it was. If you're a BMX guy or whatever, and you're showing up to the ramps, you're eventually going to run into your fucking heroes if you're in Pasadena or wherever, because they're still doing it, because they still love it. And then they become your buddies. And I think that's what a lot of people forget, because it's not luck. It isn't luck. It's because you showed up 1 million times to 1 million places when everybody else left, or they didn't want to get there early, and you did. And that's why those numbers are in my phone. That's why you're doing what you're doing over there. That's why, Jake, you're doing what you're doing, getting the phone calls you're getting. Like
that just reminded me. That just reminded me of the story of when we first started playing down off Sunset. Lemmy always hung out at the Rainbow Room, same seat, same drink, same cigar, same. And I remember the first time we played the Roxy, it was like a battle of the bands. I don't even think I was old enough to drink at that point, but we got into the Rainbow and saw Lemmy there, and we go up to him like, "Oh, you're the god," and blah blah blah. Well, then it goes back to we just kept repeating that every time we went to Hollywood. We'd just go say hi to Lemmy. We'd just go say hi to Lemmy until he actually remembered, like, "Jake, what's up? You guys playing?" With his accent. Yeah. And full circle, there we are playing the Mandalay Bay direct support for Motorhead. There we are, House of Blues Sunset direct support Motorhead. And it was just one of those things where it just became repetitive until we just had the opportunity to get in, and everything came to fruition. And it's so fucking true.
And it's because you showed up. You showed up every time. And that's, to your point, Mike, is just that, right? If you're there and you're doing what you're passionate about and you keep showing up over and over, man, it's not luck. It arrives to you when you're ready. If you're pissed that it didn't arrive 6 months ago, you wouldn't have been ready for it. If it's 6 months from now, it's because you're going to be prepared. And that's what I think a lot of people forget. They get into this timeline about things, and it's like, that's why, like, if I write another book, is it bound to happen? Probably. When? I don't know. What's it about? I'm not sure. I got a million notes, but what's that going to look like when it happens? Who's going to buy it? Or will it be 10,000 or will it be 5? I don't know. But you know what? If I decide to do it, I'll fucking show up, and it'll be as great as I can fucking make it, and it'll work out and be what it is. I'm okay with that. Like, if you get in your head about what it's supposed to be, you start paying attention to numbers and other shit, start losing it. Start losing everything, really.
Sometimes you just got to let her rip.
Yeah, nailed it, man. Nailed it.
Well, Josh, where can everybody find you, man? What's your handle? Where are you at the most now that you're back on social media?
Yeah. Just at Joshua Coburn on all the things is the easiest way to find me. Hit me up. Like, if you're out there, you need some support, you need somebody to say what's up, or you just need some daily fucking kick in the pants, just hit follow. You'll see some stuff every day that's going to give you some encouragement for sure.
I love that.
Love it, man. I couldn't be more appreciative of your time, as I had started this off with. Man, you've always been a straight shooter, amazing dude in my life, and I'm sure thousands of others.
Man, I appreciate it. It's an honor to be here and to do this. So thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it.
Dude, anytime.
Fuck yeah.